videos. So today we have Gerald, a lead transport specialist with the World Bank, who would provide provide a little background on the entire project. Then we would hear from Prerna talk about TOD lifecycle and process mapping and shed light upon the need for road safety in such projects. This would be followed by Dhaval presenting on using a safe system approach for achieving road safety needs with the TOD. And later we'll have Rajiv conduct a virtual interactive game with all of us participating in smaller groups, focusing on providing safe access to transit stations in a TOD. Now I would ask Gerald to present. Let me switch screens.
Great. So you're going to show my screen. Thanks, Abhishek.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. So let me start by saying I'm delighted to have all of you participating today. You're joining from different parts of the world. So some of you are in the morning, evening, or afternoon. We will be recording the sessions so that we are able to also share it more broadly. This session is actually by invitation only because we will have an actual game around the safe access to transit station, which can only be done in a smaller group. But this is going to be part of a series where the other segments will be more open. Let me start by thanking GRSF, the Global Road Safety Facility, as well as UK Aid for supporting this work. This work builds on work done with the Global Platform for Sustainable Cities that the World Bank and the Transit-Oriented Development Group implemented earlier, and tries to address one of the elements that was maybe underrepresented in a toolkit we developed. So if you go through to the first slide, Abhishek, when we are looking at this series, we are going to look at 4 events. The first one today is an introduction with the game taking place in about 30 minutes. The second will be a focus on how do you assess and enable the environment for road safety within a transit-oriented development project cycle. It will be followed by a session that focuses on the planning and design of road safety measure as part of transit-oriented development project. And then the final session will be on financing and implementing road safety measures in TOD. Next slide, please. So, the starting point for all of us next is really to the realization that when it comes to people who are most vulnerable to fatalities, crashes, you find pedestrian, two-wheelers across the globe as representing the majority of people impacted by fatalities or severe accident. Next slide. And as you look at transit-oriented development, where essentially you're trying to create an environment where people live in slightly more dense environment, gathered around station, where meaning you're going to have a lot of flows of people from station to the housing or the office buildings, you realize that doing TOD without thinking about safety is defeating the purpose. And that really is what generated the genesis of this activity. Next slide, please. So at the core of it, when we look at the city level at the implementation of transit-oriented development, we look at creating mixed-use development. We look at creating a space that is going to ensure, a lot of walking, cycling, and do it in a way that is safe, that allows for transfer, that thinks about how the flows are going to be supported by the overall infrastructure environment and the set of rules that work with it. And we look at it as a way that will also decrease the number of cars on the street and slow down the speed in those neighborhoods. Next slide, please. What we then realize is that it's really about creating an urban space that has a quality of living attached to it, that slows down the pace of movement, but creates also a good connectivity across the city by providing in between rapid solution in the form of public transit. So the combination of this pedestrian-friendly environment at the local level and rapid movement through the city requires a strong focus on safe TOD. Next slide, please. We know that cities are, really looking very closely at making streets pedestrianized, bringing smart features to, ensure safe crossing, for example, creating a space that are restricted for cars. And those are part of the overall set of measures you can think of in a safe TOD environment. Next slide, please. So over the past few years, we created a toolkit that really tries to capture all the elements that the city considering transit-oriented development needs to know about. That's the publication that serves as an anchor to the work we are doing today. Next slide, please. That publication really came from the principle that to move forward effectively with TOD, you need to be very systematic. And there are lessons learned that can be applied to avoid the duplication of effort, as well as bring the right set of solutions for different contexts. So the toolkit that has been developed by the bank allows a set of solutions working across different environments and allows essentially government agencies to pick up the type of recommendation that could work in their context. Next slide, please. To do that, it takes a 5-step process to transit-oriented development, from the assessment of the environment to creating the enabling elements that are going to make TOD happen, to thinking about the planning and design systematically, the financing of TOD, and then supporting the implementation. Now, when we did that, we realized that we may have overlooked a bit the safety function as part of this work. Next slide, please. And we developed a series of tools looking at analytical aspect, communication, how to providing resources and case studies that allow cities to move forward, and helping cities procure the consultant services that are required to move on any of the 5 steps I mentioned, but we did not really fully capture road safety. Next slide, please. So this is what this toolkit seeks to, this effort really seeks to address. We have supplemented the existing tools that are available in the toolkit with these new outputs. And next slide, please. And they permeate throughout the toolkit. So you have totally brand new output, like how to understand road safety or how to perform road safety assessment in a TOD area. Next slide, please. We also have supplemented the existing guidance note, so those items that are surrounded in blue, by really ensuring that elements of road safety are fully embedded in the current recommendation. Next slide. We have created a new tool to look at the planning of safe access to transit-oriented development. Next slide. And also developed a tool on how to communicate this safe access to transport planners and policymakers. So all of these elements, the orange and the blues, are additions to the toolkit that really ensure a focus on transit-oriented development that is safe. And that's what we are going to cover over these 4-part series. Last slide, please. So finally, we have covered most of it in a good practice note that you have received before this event, which kind of encapsulate a lot of the messages that have been added to the toolkit. So we encourage you to look at it and refer to it. So with that, I would like to conclude these opening remarks and say that this is still an opportunity to think together about what works in different contexts. We welcome your views on the documents we have shared with you. And as we go through the process, if you have comments or recommendation or experience you want to share with us during this month, we'll be able to embed them as part of the final output that is expected by the end of the month. So wishing you a very good learning today and in the next session. Back to you, Abhishek.
So much, Gerald. Now I would invite my colleague Prerna Mehta, who's lead urban development sustainable cities, to walk us through the fundamentals of transit-oriented development and its process mapping.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Abhishek and Gerald, for facilitating this conversation and setting the context. As Abhishek mentioned, I will briefly discuss about the transit-oriented development process and the relevance of road safety for transit-oriented development. Before I get into details of the topic, I would like to share that this workshop series is a part of project or integration of road safety considerations in TOD projects. The larger scope of the project was to develop how-to guidelines to address the need of systematic inclusion of road safety considerations in transit-oriented development projects. Transit-oriented development, commonly known as TOD, is a planning approach that focuses on creating urban development patterns which facilitates the use of public transit, walking and cycling as primary mode of transport and which supports vibrant, diverse and livable communities. It provides a culture of live, work, play, shop and learn in a pedestrian-friendly environment for its residents. TOD calls for concentrating urban densities, communities and activities ideally within 500 to 800 meter radius or 5 to 10 minutes walking distance of mass rapid transit stops or stations, both bus and rail based, developing quality urban space and providing convenient and efficient access to diverse mix of land uses. TOD can be applied at 4 scales, that is at regional scale or city level, corridor level, which can be within the city or between two cities, station area level and at site level. At regional or city level, it involves integration of land uses with transit system planning to support analysis and decision making related to citywide growth management. It provides a point of intervention for TOD as a policy in statutory documents such as master plans, development plans or DCRs. At corridor level, it ensures that the development at one station complements development at other stations, resulting in a network of transit-oriented places. Specific transit ridership goals can be evaluated at this scale against development potential around transit stations. At station area level, it focuses on areas surrounding transit stations within a 5 to 10 minute walking distance, focusing on land use, safe access to transit stations for all users, transit station accessibility, multimodal integration and connectivity. And at site level, the focus is on individual developments within a station area. It includes targets for net intensity and density for development, internal circulation, building design and parking. While TOD projects are operationalized on individual parcels or streets within station areas, planning needs to be conceptualized at multiple interrelated scales. TOD planning can start at smaller scale and move up the spectrum or at a larger scale and move down. At each scale, TOD can be achieved by applying these overarching core principles that gives priority to pedestrian and bicycling by fostering complete streets that offer space for all types of road users. Creates mixed uses, mixed income and high densities around transit, whereby encouraging compact development, basically facilitating density concentration near transit facility. Integrates public transport with other modes, that is the transition from one mode to another mode should be less cumbersome and the idea is to design for safe and comfortable access. Creates active edges or activities along the road frontage. An active frontage is a street edge, for example shops along roads, to provide round the clock eyes on street, that is the active users looking into streets to facilitate natural surveillance. Creates usable public spaces for enhanced public realm. Focuses on preserving environmental and cultural landscapes. The idea is not to lose the local context and identity as far as cultural landscapes are concerned, and ensure that the natural features of the area are well preserved. And also undertake travel demand management, essentially focusing on traffic movement and parking management strategies within the TOD areas. The urban development context plays an important role in influencing the feasibility and success of TOD. The three overarching types of development contexts are greenfield, suburban, and urban. Greenfield, that refers to land that currently has little or no urban development. Such site may either lie in the outskirts of existing cities or within newly planned cities. Suburban refers to land that is sparsely developed along the outer edges of the city limits. Suburban sites are characterized by low residential densities and low transit reach. Urban refers to locations within populated cities that are characterized by densely developed or brownfield sites with poor access to open spaces and civic amenities, and dense aging or blighted developments. Some new cities or or growing areas of existing cities offer significant greenfield opportunities for development. Metro cities, for example, Mexico City, Mumbai, New Delhi, Cape Town, etc., which are already developed, offer mainly redevelopment opportunities. To attain TOD for a given scale and a given category, keeping in view the discussed principles, it is suggested to adopt 5-step process, also called as TOD framework. The TOD framework consists of 5 steps: assess, enable, plan and design, finance, and implement. This should not be considered a linear process, but rather as a simultaneous parallel interlinked process. The assess stage helps to determine how ready is the city for TOD. It provides an overview of the steps required to examine a city's preparedness for undertaking TOD initiatives, including defining scale and scope of planning of the area and identifying stakeholders for undertaking TOD projects. The enable stage highlights policy barriers and mechanisms that cities can use in enabling TOD planning process. It provides the steps necessary to create an enabling environment for implementing successful TODs prior to embarking on detailed TOD planning initiatives. The plan and design stage focuses on formulating context-specific solutions and priorities. It contains a series of detailed planning principles and design components to formulate contextual TOD plans at various scales of intervention, that is city, corridor, station area and site scales. The finance stage focuses on dynamics of real estate financing, infrastructure investment, and role of private developers in TOD. It provides an overview of financing tools that can be used by a city to achieve the TOD planning policies, projects, and initiatives as identified. Implementation stage ties the diverse interventions needed to make TOD happen, from prioritizing projects, capacity building, and monitoring. It provides an overview of tasks and subtasks required to implement TOD plans, including the institutional framework and supportive public policies. A typical TOD project lifecycle consists of stages that can be categorized under discussed 5 steps of TOD framework shown on the slide. In our experience, the highlighted lifecycle stages includes road safety as an embedded element and not as an exclusive asset or outcome of a TOD project. Besides this, as part of the project, WRI-India reviewed close to 80 resources that included guidelines, books, reports, technical papers, case studies, etc., that led to clear conclusion that road safety is considered as a derivative of particular stage or mix of stages in TOD discussion. Considering that TOD influences urban form, densities and mode choice, road safety outcome becomes intrinsic part of TOD projects. It focuses on integration of systems for active transport users, public transit users, vehicle users in surrounding densities that supports it. Hence, it is vital to include discussion regarding road safety at each step of TOD framework as well. So, for road safety inclusion, assess stage offers to evaluate the road safety readiness of a city and to understand the need for TOD project implementation. Enable stage offers to enable the institutions and stakeholders about the challenges of road safety and how TOD project development can be catalyst for achieving road safety. Planning and design offers to ensure that planning of network and facilities and designing of various elements of networks align with requirements for smooth functioning of TOD station area and caters to the requirements of all road users to ensure safety. Finance stage offers to allocate funds, provide incentives, and develop innovative financing tools for the local authorities, enabling institution, developers, and property owners to ensure road safety. Implement offers to overcome barriers of implementing road safety within a TOD station area by addressing institutional gaps and performance indicators. TOD revolves around a transit station. While one wants to talk about road safety in TOD, safe access to transit facility cannot be overlooked. The safe access can be broadly classified under 5 core strategies. These strategies focus on challenges of all road users and gives an understanding of how to prioritize requirements of vulnerable user group in complex ecosystem of cities. The first strategy discusses about prioritizing pedestrian and cycling through interconnected neighborhoods and city networks, safe and comfortable pedestrian and cycling infrastructure and services, and provision of amenities for pedestrian and cyclists. The next strategy is about enhanced public realm through streets as public spaces, imageable public area, signage systems, activities by time of the day. The third strategy focuses in provision of feeder integration through access to IPT, seamless integration of various modes including information systems, and bus priority measures. The parking management strategy focuses on regulating parking, public bicycling share or bicycling parking, prioritize feeder bus services, shared parking, parking management plans. Lastly, ensuring enhanced safety and security through road geometrics, speed limits, traffic calming, pedestrian and empty movements, safe streets, and amenities. However, to decide on application of these strategies, it is important to understand the requirements of citizens and areas from a grassroots level, and we will discuss about it more in our activity session today. This safe access strategy for road safety in TOD area and can be achieved through safe systems approach. With this, I will conclude my presentation and hand it over to Abhishek for facilitating the next session.
Thanks, Abhishek. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm going to try sharing my screen, all right? Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see a screen.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. How much time do I have, Abhishek?
You have 5 to 6 minutes. Sorry.
Thank you. So thank you everyone, and thank you Gerald for the opening remarks. I actually, in many ways, will pick up from some of the things that you mentioned. I mean, Soms is here, who's sort of, worked in road safety for all these years. Alina I mean, I've worked with you guys a little bit on the Bloomberg initiative, etc. Often we sort of start our road safety presentation with wanting to sensitize, and it's sort of, it feels repetitive, but I also always feel like it's never enough. So, just sort of talking about road safety or the lack thereof in low and middle income countries, some statistics that we've kind of managed to pull out from some great studies is, I mean, in Africa, about 43% of all fatalities are pedestrians and bicyclists. Just the number of people disabled, and then the sort of the inequality because of sort of poor road safety is so stark. In India, the poorest group sort of spent about half of their annual income on medical care. And what this means is the several Airbuses sort of kind of crashing. I mean, we often talk about road traffic fatalities as accidents, and everything else is a crash. So a plane is a crash. I mean, so just this was sort of one of the findings from, these are 10 cities that we all worked under the Bloomberg Philanthropies initiative from 2015 to 2019. One thing very clear is the sort of vulnerable road user group that is at the greatest risk. I mean, it's sort of vulnerable, is at risk. But walking, cycling, bicycling, and riding motorcycles, and the kind of risk that there is, about 80% in almost all of the 10 cities that we've worked in, all fatal crashes comprise of vulnerable road user groups. So it obviously needs to sort of drive our action in that direction. And then, just the top 10 cause of death among like this really young group, 15 to 29 is again road safety. It's got such high social costs, months of lost work and sort of the consequences thereof. This was from a study in South Korea, and it's particularly sad, when the injured victims earn about 40% lower income, and the more disabled earn substantially lower, which is 60% lower. I mean, and just the sort of development that is delayed. There are studies in India that say that, if we manage to sort of curb accidents are costing 3% of our GDP indirectly. This is a study actually that the World Bank had done many years ago of about 120, 130 countries, that talks about the potential increase in GDP per capita that could have been achieved through substantial reduction in injuries. So it's clear that we need to do, and there is enough evidence in developing countries of using what we are calling the safe systems that has sort of shown results. So this was a study of 53 countries that found that a safe system approach, sorry, it just keeps going ahead, was able to reduce traffic fatalities faster and at such lower rates. In fact, if the rest of the world had seen these rates, we would see 1 million fewer road deaths a year. We globally reported deaths, we are seeing 1.5 million. So imagine that would just come down to 500,000. Okay, so safe systems, how do we kind of look at it, right? I mean, let's compare it with what is typically the traditional approach to safety, and somebody working in India immediately relates to this, but I'm sure many of you also sort of working in several other countries do that. So the emphasis in the usual traditional approach is sort of individual responsibility. People need to cooperate with the government, people need to follow rules, people are reckless, pedestrians are distracted, etc. Dependence is more on public education, therefore. So, how do we train people? How do we train drivers? How do we just train everyone? And sort of the conversation is always based on cardom. So, regulations are focused on vehicle occupants, but, the sort of people that are dying or the vulnerable are somewhere else. The safe system comes in to say that road safety has to be shifted from a personal responsibility to a public health issue. Understanding behaviors of people is very important. So people will make mistakes. It's not like they should be left to die. Genesis, they say in the Netherlands and the Sweden. So the very sort of the word Vision Zero that I think all of us are either familiar or have definitely heard is sort of coming out of Sweden in 1997. And then the policy kind of spread in different cities. So like Washington, DC will have a sort of Vision Zero, or a New York City. In different states, in a different, like an entire country or a global policy has mirrored the shift. Anyway, Vision Zero sort of, it can be a contested term because, many politicians or many administrations will be like, hey, this is, we're not going to achieve zero. But Vision Zero, I mean, in its sort of meaning, it essentially means that we have to strive to zero. We have to sort of be guided by certain principles and understand that no loss of life is acceptable. So, it talks about fatalities and serious injuries, which is what we have to prevent to save lives. Humans make mistakes and they are fragile, so they shouldn't have to die for it. So you have to consciously design for that. Responsibility shouldn't be just of the road users. It has to be a system responsibility. A very important part of it is system designers. People don't want safety. No, everybody wants safety. I want to go out and come back very, very safe. People do want safety, and the Vision Zero believes in that fact, right? And the appropriate goal is not optimum number of fatalities and serious injuries. It is to strive to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries. So some of the sort of safe systems in the world you see here, on the bottom right corner is Haryana Vision Zero that we sort of started a few years ago with the Haryana government, and the chief minister was really on board. This program, although kind of can be much better, which we are sort of trying to work towards, has seen a definite reduction in fatalities in the state of Haryana. Yeah, okay, so this is sort of my main slide, and the reason I was saying I'd like to sort of pick up from something that Gerald mentioned in his sort of opening remark, was that, um, okay, I just lost my chain of thoughts. Yeah, just coming back. The idea is, so when I just started working in road safety, coming from a very strong transport planning background into sort of working in road safety in WRI about 7-8 years ago, TOD was one of the approaches to actually improve road safety. It's interesting that Gerald and you guys sort of point out that when you made that excellent publication, somehow it was sort of overlooked. If I may argue that, oftentimes sort of what we think is the sort of design that we are proposing, safety is implicit in it. Just to give an example, this one time we were talking with the PWD a secretary, or a sort of, I think he was the chief engineer in Maharashtra. And he's like, I'm following all the IRC guidelines. My role is over. Despite every year, sort of fatalities and serious injuries increasing on PWD roads, it was a point at the time very hard to contest. Coming back and looking at it from a safe systems point of view, there are so many things that could have been done. One is just prioritizing. If you believe that no loss of life is acceptable, that will drive you towards sort of right actions. Now, the safe systems approach, and this is a publication that WRI did with the World Bank some years ago. What it does is it identifies a set of principles, core elements, and action areas. All of them together sort of form the safe systems approach. But in its application, what we need to do is we need to sort of integrate some of these principles, core elements, and action areas into our existing sort of functioning or existing processes. So for instance, sort of TOD is an essential, is a great land use planning tool to reduce vehicle kilometers traveled and thereby reduce sort of the potential fatalities. So it is, but like Gerald mentioned, right? I mean, is that somewhere we need to explicitly and consciously look at ways to improve road safety, even within the TOD framework. So in the exercise that we've done in the past year, we're guided by these principles, core elements, and action areas, and we've tried to integrate learnings from these into the 5 sort of modules that Prerna and Gerald spoke about. So yeah, another thing is just an interesting thing to mention is because about 2-3 minutes into sort of Gerald's talk, so today the State Road Safety Committee, which the government mandates should meet twice every year. Today, the Maharashtra State Road Safety Committee met under the chairmanship of the Honorable Transport Minister, and he was still talking. It's been 7 years. I've been meeting people in the government and trying to kind of, in some ways, propose this approach or a more data-oriented sort of planning to improve road safety. And to this date, what I hear from different leaders or different administrators is just, it's the same thing, but it's also different things. And it's just, it kind of tells you that we need to keep sort of our focus on the top, and these sort of things have to be advocated sort of well. I mean, these principles, I think I'm done.
Hi, Dhaval. Yeah, you have a minute to close.
Yeah, I'm just, I mean, these are the principles that we saw in this slide, just the humans make errors, humans are vulnerable to response, etc. Okay, I don't want to go too much into sort of details of these slides, but I want to sort of show some of these very interesting, you see on the bottom in the gray box, some of these interesting findings. So crash frequency models in Latin American cities suggest that mere medians can reduce crashes, including severe crashes, by 30 to 40%. Just such an important, yet a very simple road element. Here, about side guards. So trucks, the side guards in the truck can reduce cyclist fatalities by 61% and pedestrian fatalities by 20% in just side impact crashes. So solutions are simple. Elements are those that we've known and we've used for many years. The idea is, how do you sort of view it in a certain context? With this, I will stop. I think in the sort of sessions ahead, we will see how we've tried to integrate learnings from this approach into sort of systematically strengthening these modules in improving safety. Yeah, I think I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dhaval. So now we'll move to the virtual interactive activity. Um, yeah, so we would begin with a quick Mentimeter word clouds. I would want all of you to have your cell phones handy. And then I'll ask Rajiv, Manager Urban Development, to walk us through the interactive role-playing game. And we would split into groups and enter our individual breakout rooms and play the activity. Following which, we would return back to the same space here and have a team member from each of the group present on their individual outcomes, and they'll have 2 to 3 minutes. Um, so if you can just go on to www.menti.com and use this code, um, we'll we'll be able to enter the answers and see the screen. Rajiv, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Abhishek. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. And like Abhishek mentioned, we'll just get started with the Mentimeter part. And if everyone could take about 15 to 30 seconds to sort of answer this question. So we'll have the answer popping up. Okay, the question was, what challenges have we faced while accessing public transport in your cities? We are getting some answers which say no bus on schedule. So there is sort of the frequency of the buses don't tend to be quite regular. Then there is chaotic IPT parking, which is the feeder systems which we are talking about, which are quite irregular, which leads to lack of first and last mile connectivity. Then we have safety as a concern, which is usually implied not just for men, but also women and other vulnerable groups. Unplanned, unsafe, cumbersome access, delays, information about the buses or mass transit. Yeah, that's interesting to know. Thank you. Abhishek, can you, yeah, so I think we are, yeah, good with this. If you could just switch to the next question. So the next question is, what do pedestrians and cyclists lack in terms of, safety during their commute? So this could be based on your personal experiences or what you've observed, or based on the best of the knowledge you have with respect to walking and cycling, just to understand what you feel about this. Nice. So we have lack of space, bad and thin sidewalks, no cycling infrastructure, no cycling protected lanes, parking facilities, lighting, again, it's concerned to the safety and visibility when you cycle or walk. Wow, that's interesting. Okay. So yeah, so and there's car parking facility, dedicated access space. Yeah. So this is interesting. So we already have these kind of thoughts coming through, and we as experts are aware to a certain extent, both through our personal experiences, at the same time the professional work we are into, to sort of understand there are these kind of challenges which do exist. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for this. So with this, we'll just get started with the workshop. Just to understand the objective of the workshop, this interactive activity is primarily meant to ideate and co-create solutions for safe access. And secondly, it's understand and establish each stakeholder's role and finally build consensus through collaboration. So what we're trying to see in a nutshell is we're talking about safe access to mass transit stations, and also seeing this through a lens of different stakeholders who use both the mass transit and the last mile connectivity. And finally, sort of how each stakeholder plays a certain role in terms of deciding or rather giving their inputs in terms of what is required in a given station area. Next slide, Abhishek. Yeah. So before we start with the details of the activity, it's just for all of us to be on the same page to understand what a station area is. So station area basically refers to the area around public transit station that is within 10-minute walking distance, and this radius could range somewhere for about 750 meters to a 1 kilometer radius from a given mass transit station. So, and this is also a place where it's not just about reaching to this particular station, but having being able to stay close by, so that it just doesn't become an area of commute, but also becomes more livable in nature for a given situation in a city. Yeah, next. So, and like Prerna explained in her presentation, we will be using these 5 principles to sort of identify strategies under each of these principles. So we have enhanced public realm, then we have multimodal integration, which is towards the right, the blue one. And then we have parking management, we have safety and security, and pedestrian and cycling. And I'll not get into details of this because it's already been explained. But one point I wanted to mention was, while we consider these principles and develop station areas, usually people end up becoming the center of our whole approach, and it is important to sort of consider all types of users for a given point of time to achieve the best of the solutions. Next slide, Abhishek. Yeah, so with that, we'll get started with interactive exercise. Just to give you a brief understanding of the components of this exercise. Firstly, we have this something called as an interactive board, which consists of these 5 principles in the center, and then each color table which you see is has listed down a set of strategies for that respective principle, and similarly the infographic also explains about those particular strategies. I'm also trying to sort of tell this in the context of with the background that usually this is done as a physical workshop where we print this out as bigger sheets, and the groups get to sit across the table and discuss. And this is the first time which we are also exploring a virtual medium, so it will be interesting to know how these discussions pan out. So this particular board is to sort of indicate what is the overall picture we are talking about in terms of what happens in the activity. Next slide, Abhishek. Yeah, so and after the interactive board, we then have these role play cards. So when you'll be splitting into groups, you will be we'll be getting into a greater detail in terms of explaining what these roles are. But in a broader sense, we are talking about one, the government authority, who will be in a way a decision making person. And then we have the citizen roles, which are women on a wheelchair, grandfather, teenager on a cycle, and a car owner. And finally, we have private developer, who sort of tends to be inclined in terms of towards the development and also making profits in a way. So these roles in a way represent different class of people in a given station area or a neighborhood, and we will be looking at this activity through the lens of these roles. Next slide, Abhishek. So what we are going to do in the activity is, firstly, out of this given interactive board, while we split into groups, each group will firstly take one of the principles. Abhishek, can you click one more time? Yeah. So for instance, the green one, which is talking about enhanced public realm. So when we break out into subgroups, the group will be working on just one of these tables, which indicates one of the principles, and we'll get into details of identifying strategies for that. Next one. So when you look into one of these tables, it has two sets of strategies mentioned. And the first three are clustered as one set of strategies, and DEF are clustered as second set of strategies. Abhishek, can you click one more time? Yeah. So what you as participants have to do is you will be assigned with these roles which are written on the top. We have the government private, W represents women on the wheelchair, then we have grandfather, teenager on a cycle, and the car owner. And so what you do at the first round is you have to individually choose which option do you want in the first three, and one option in the second three. So let's say if I'm a government, so I'll choose one option in the first three and I'll choose one option in the second three. So this happens for all the roles which you have picked. So with respect to with your respective roles, you need to pick these options as of step one. Abhishek, next. And as a stage two, once all of you have done picking your individual recommendations out of these two sets of strategies given, then you tend to discuss as a group, and you have to come together with one option, the similar way, one among first three and one among the second three. But this last table will be a collective decision by the group based on your respective requirements. And also government, the person who gets government as a role will be the decision maker for the group to say that, I've listened to everyone with respect to their opinions, and I'll be the one who will be taking call on this. And even when we come back for the presentations, person who's representing the government will be presenting to sort of explain why this particular strategy was chosen, and what was the thought behind choosing that particular strategy. Next. Yeah, so I've explained this already. When we come back after the group discussions, we will discuss why did you choose the strategy, how did you arrive at this decision, and was this a smooth decision or were there discussions happening? And government will be the spokesperson. Just a few tips before we break into groups. One is you will be assigned certain roles, and please make sure you stick to that particular role. For instance, let's say you get a role of a car owner. You will be representing all the car owners in the city. So when you take a decision, you have to sort of think it through as if you will be the person responsible for taking decisions for the rest of them. And hence, you need to choose the strategy based on that particular role rather than being biased towards anything else for that matter. Yeah. Similarly, this applies to the rest of the roles. So make sure you stick to your role for the next 15-20 minutes. And when we come back, we'll see how the discussions went. Yeah. Abhishek, you want to break the groups into two?
Yeah, so it seems some people have also left. So right now in the group, in the session, we have about 13 people, and most of it's like between some of us are from WRI. So we'll, instead of splitting into groups, we will take up one principle, and we'll have all the participants, including team members from World Bank, to participate. And Rajiv, why don't you moderate this session, and we'll just play it over here instead of and you, if you want, you can share your screen. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that. Abhishek, meanwhile, would it be possible to, okay, I'll probably share the roles, and then we could sort of assign roles to the participants. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see your screen now.
Yeah. Okay. So what we'll essentially do is I have already explained these roles, but we'll just take about 15 to 30 seconds just to read through these. Also to very quickly understand uh, how many people we have right now.
So we have 10 people, and you may want to focus the discussion on the road safety part as opposed to the broader safety part. You're muted.
Rajiv, you're muted.
Yes, so I was just saying that we will be taking pedestrian and cycling as one of the principles to work on, and we'll try to see how to sort of orient that towards the road safety angle. And also to just, before we get started with that, if I could very quickly assign roles. So we have Alina. Alina, you could take teenager with a cycle. Yeah. And there's Blanca who can take grandfather. And then Gerard, would you like to play?
Of course, of
Yeah.
course.
So Gerard will be women on a wheelchair. And then we have Helena, who will be the car owner. And yeah, and okay,
We can have Dhaval.
yeah, so Dhaval could play the role of private business. And actually, I'll do one thing. Um, let Gerald be the government authority, and whatever role Gerald got, I think Gerald had women on a wheelchair. We'll have Shabna or Himanshi playing the role of women on a wheelchair. Yeah. Okay, so with that kind of distribution of roles, I'll just leave the screen for about 30 seconds just for you to run through these information, through this information. This is basically talking about, what is your scope or what is your limitation with respect to your role. So when you're sort of taking your decisions, it needs to have this particular undertone to the decision making you do, and even otherwise, we are quite aware with respect to these roles based on our experiences, on a day-to-day experience. Yeah.
And if all the participants who are taking up a role, if they can also turn on their cameras, it would be great, but no compulsion.
Yeah. Thanks, Abhishek. Okay, so I'll just shift to the other screen. Hello.
Rajiv, we can hear
Go
you.
ahead. Yes, we can.
Yeah. Sorry, there was actually a power cut, so
Yeah,
I thought I lost.
we lost you for a minute.
Yeah. Okay, so the next set of roles are car owner, then there's private business, and then we have the government authority. Yeah. So we could just quickly run through these. Okay. So with that, we'll just move to this activity. What I would like to do is, I'll just sort of very quickly explain what each one of them mean, because although it has a straightforward meaning, but maybe the terminologies we use might vary slightly from one context to other. So firstly, the option A, which exists, it is provide universal accessible footpaths and optimal carriageway in the station area. So this is talking about designing footpaths to the best extent possible with respect to optimal design standards. This could include, adequate width of about minimum 3 to 4 meters, and then we have properly designed ramps, bollards at property entrances. So all the possible, best suited elements for the safe walking conditions for pedestrians and cyclists to some extent. And secondly, this also means that, in a given road condition, at the moment you have increased level of increased widths of these footpaths to make them properly accessible, which means that we need to compromise on the carriageway a bit. So that's what option A says. Option B, we are talking about focusing on ensuring adequate carriageway for smooth movement of traffic, and also provide adequate footpath, which may or may not be universally accessible to the station area. So this option B is usually sort of indicative of situation or conditions which happen in a general scenario in a lot of cities here, where there is even but they try to sort of balance between the carriageway and the footpath. So at times these footpath might even go as less as 1.5 or 1.2 meters, and even at a height of almost 1 feet in certain areas. So option B talks about, providing both, but there is a bit of compromise in both, so that they sort of favor the motorists. At the same time, there is some level of facility given for people to walk. And finally, option C, provide maximum carriageway with minimal footpaths in the station area. Here it's clearly talking about prioritizing vehicular modes, but there is footpath given, but it may or may not suffice to the pedestrian users to sort of use it efficiently. Yeah. The next, maybe I'll probably explain the next three. Option D, which is talking about, the next three options are talking about provision of bicycle lanes and its relation with respect to the road space and the safety aspect of it. Provide segregated and protected bike lanes with dedicated signals at junctions. Here we are talking about provision of cycle lanes with proper physical demarcations to make sure that they are safe as compared to the motorists. And the option E, which is talking about provide cycle lanes by marking on existing carriageway, but not necessarily dedicated, at signals and junctions. So here we are talking about just marking a cycle lane onto a given carriageway and not really having a physical demarcation. This might actually work efficiently in a lot of European and American context, because people might tend to use them as per the norms. But in a given situation of developing countries in Asia and India, there are a lot of times, because of the crunch of space, the motorists often tend to ride onto these marked lanes as well. So I'm just trying to set the context here, because that's the kind of challenges which cyclists also face in a given situation. And finally, we have F, where cyclists are required to share their carriageway with traffic, which means that there is no dedicated cycle lane marking, but there is enough space for everyone to move, including the cars and the buses and everything. Yeah. So that sort of explains. With that, I'll just open the session for discussion now. So if we can go as per each role with respect to the assigned roles, and we can quickly sort of tick options based on your individual role first, and then we could get into the collaborative discussion bit. Yeah. So can we first have government?
Okay, so I'm the government.
So that you can
Yes, Gerald, you're the
tell
government.
me
Yes.
what
So can
is
you,
the option here?
okay, can you put back the options on so that they can see them?
Yes, yes, Gerald.
Yeah. So as I still don't see the options. Okay.
So,
So
I'm saying,
I think
can
there's
you
a
see it
little
now?
lag right now, but yeah.
Oh, okay, just give me.
Rajiv, maybe it will help if you can close it.
If you can stop your video sharing, Rajiv, it would help.
Can you see it now?
yes,
we can
we
see
can
it.
we can see it. Yes.
Okay.
So I have to pick up
Yeah,
between ABC, right, and DEF. So look, as a government, we yeah, but if you don't, you take them away. Can you show them back?
I think Rajiv got
Disconnected.
yeah,
Okay, so you have them available?
Yes, let me just pull it up.
So, you know, as a government, I need to provide for a variety of needs. And therefore, you know, while I fully appreciate that some people want to work and they want to create the right space for them, I need to also take care of the drivers and the buses that are on the road and give enough space. As you know, today, most people are taking motorcycle in our city. And accordingly, we want to make sure that everybody has a space. And I would accordingly select a B, and maybe we can take some measures to slow down the traffic around the station to compensate for that. And I'm not supposed to be an enlightened government, so I'm just playing the role of a typical government. And then, you know, looking at cycle, I mean, the first, it's too hot in our country for people to cycle. So I don't think it really makes a lot of sense to invest in cycle lane, and certainly not in redoing the designated, redoing the signal that we just invested in. I mean, for 2 cycles, it's really not useful. So I think, you know, maybe we can do a little bit of a layer of paint if it's really necessary. So I would say something between E and F, but it's really because we have pressure to look, you know, modern, that we would select E, because otherwise F seems totally fine. Who cares about cyclists? Back to you.
No one cares about cyclists. Okay, who is the private developer on the group?
That was Dhaval, I guess. Yeah.
Hi, Dhaval. So if you can help us out. Dhaval, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Okay, while we wait for Dhaval, who was a woman on a wheelchair, or did we remove that person? Am I audible?
Yes, Abhishek.
Yes, you
yes.
are. I think it was Shabana. It was someone from your team from WRI.
Yeah, that's me, Himanshi. Hi.
Hi, Himanshi.
Yeah. So being a woman on a wheelchair, for me, it will be important to see having universally accessible footpaths and an optimal carriageway. That is point A.
Option A.
A, right. And seeing the cyclists' safety, and I will go with option D, that is provide segregated and protected bicycle lanes with dedicated signals. Yeah, because if they are segregated, then even I am safe while moving on my my footpath, and different carriageway is what I suggest for them.
That's good. Our grandfather in the team.
Yes, so this is Blanca. I'm the
Hi, Blanca.
Hi, I'm the grandmother of the team. So I will. I'm not able to walk like very quickly. I have some difficulties to move around. So in that sense, I need like sidewalks that are easily accessible, and areas also which I can walk feeling safe. In that sense, I would go for recommendation A, provide universal accessibility footpaths. Regarding bicycles, I don't bike at all. So in that sense, I wouldn't mind about cyclists, but the truth is that I want to also feel safe when I walk around, and I have daughter, son, and I have grandchildren with that I care about. So I feel option E will be a good option.
Perfect.
Blanca, it could also
do we have a team?
Sorry, Abhishek. Blanca,
No, go ahead, Rajiv.
Yeah, so just to highlight, it might be a scenario where you might not cycle, but I'm actually glad that you said I would think about my grandchildren and might let them cycle. But there's also a system where there are these new electric, short scooters coming for the old age folks, which sort of travel with limited speeds. That's something also you could opt for if at all you want to go shopping close by.
Okay.
Yeah, we have teenager on a cycle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be me. And it's really funny because I don't know how to cycle, but of course, being a teen on the cycle, I feel, I'm the most exposed to road crashes. I'm the my age group is actually the #1 age group that is being killed in traffic crashes. So I definitely need a universal access footpath and optimal carriageway in the station area, because I want to be able to move my bicycle between metro and MRTs and whatever public transport I might choose. And at the same time, I am sick and tired of riding my bicycle on sidewalks and I don't want to see these old people also that are in front of me on sidewalks. So I really want my dedicated lane so I can speed up with my bicycle and have my own dedicated segregated lane where I can actually speed up without being worried about my safety and the safety of others who are surrounding me. So yes, definitely options A and D from my side. Thank you.
As a government, I object that this is not a real teenager, because a teenager thinks is invincible or she's invincible. So she's not really going to think that she's at risk. You're way too advanced for a teenager, I must say. Okay.
Well, the teenager just got its driver's license. So
yes, let's say teenagers nowadays are starting to be a bit more aware of what's happening around them, and they want to be sure that they have their own space there, and they don't do yeah.
So invincibility also comes with the car over here. So our car owner.
Hi, yes. So I'm the car owner. For me, this is a super easy choice. I don't know what you're all talking about, but I just need really space for my car and nothing else really matters. And all the way, and anyways, the only reason why I would go to a station is because there is a McDonald's. So for me, recommendation C and F, definitely. And anyways, these bicycles that are popping up now, they're just a danger on the road.
Okay, so
that's so true.
Yeah.
Yes, our last.
I must say, as a government, I agree. All of these bicycles are leading to so many fatalities. If people were in car, they would be safe.
Gerard, sorry, just to interrupt, just to also set a little bit of context. It's a situation, it's a public hearing today. So all of you who have given your inputs, virtually or individually have come to this cabinet meeting with the government today, and you'll be representing all those respective roles of the entire city. And it's just not you, but whatever decision you take, it will be for those users in the city. So we are in a cabinet meeting now, and if each one of you want to put forth your point for the government, please go ahead.
We also need to take answers from the private developer.
Yeah.
Which is Dhaval, if is he still around? Or Rajiv, do you want to be the?
No, either Shabna or Prerna maybe.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in. This is Prerna. As a private developer, my only objective is I am going to just do with the minimum possible thing, that is just a bare minimum requirement. So yes, provide maximum carriageway, because my development is all about the leisure and the luxury. And second would be it's little outside my own territory, so I'm okay with everybody sharing a street. Has to be
perfect. So as Rajiv was saying, now we are in a town hall. We have our government on the panel, and as all planning meetings, we hardly have any participants, but we have the 4 or 5 of us. So please go ahead.
So I go ahead as a comment.
Gerard, if you, if we could let each of the roles sort of justify what they want, or you could even go ahead to sort of tell what your decision is, and then others can chip in whether they agree or disagree with your decision.
Okay, I will do the latter. I've listened to everybody speaking. I can see that there is a fairly strong call for the accessible footpath for many. And ultimately, when you think of it, we all end up walking at one point of our journey. So I think we all benefit from having, accessible footpath and, a carriageway that works for everybody. And while understanding that it is taking place, it is taking some of the space for people. At the same time, as we invest massively in public transport, we want those stations to be really a core axis of mobility for people. And therefore, based on the consultation, we would tend to say that option A around station area seems to be something that would be validated by the consultation. I would just argue on, go ahead.
Sorry, if you have points for the first 3, yes, we can hold on to the second 3.
Okay, that's my point for this first 3, having listened to the constituents.
Yeah. Thanks, Gerald. So with respect to the government's decision, I just wanted to understand if anybody had any comment on this. Is the decision wise, or you think it's biased?
No, I definitely don't agree. I need to drive my car to the station, and I don't care about pedestrians. I mean, after all, it's we the people with the car, who bring the money to this country. So who cares about the pedestrians? I need to drive there. This is what drives the economy, and this is what matters.
And that same to some extent applies to the private business as well. So
absolutely, because I'm pitching this as one of the USPs, my development. But if my private vehicles can't reach that place, does not make any sense. So what is in this for us as developers, that we agree that we should agree with what government is saying, which is not.
Okay, let's hear other people who are very much in favor of recommendation A.
Yes, I feel I'm very grateful for a very strong government, and I think future-looking government, because this is definitely the trend that we can see in the most developed cities. So I'd be happy to continue to live in this city with such a great mayor, and considering that putting the people first and not the cars. So I'm very grateful for this decision. I think it's the best way forward, and I'm happy that I'll be able to continue to live here, not move to another city with a mayor that would be putting cyclists first and pedestrians first. Thank you.
That's a very nice move, like to not threaten, but then bring in the political angle of with the mayor and any sort of an upcoming election. So
And the grandmother, just want to thank also, because not only for me that I will be able to walk around safely, but also for my grandchildren who can be in the streets safe. And in the future, probably they will have a more environmentally friendly city, because people will rather walk or use bikes instead of cars, because there will be more infrastructure to facilitate that. So thank you very much.
Okay, so in conclusion, as a government, and having heard the private sector's feedback, I want to say that actually we are going to give back a lot of carriageway to the drivers by having more people traveling by public transport. And to have more people traveling by public transport, we need to make quality environment around stations. And that will give you the space you want, and it will benefit also others. So that's a win-win for the city. Let's move to the second topic. I think this one is much more mixed in my view. Yes, of course, it would be nice, in theory, to have protected bike lane and the dedicated signal and junction, but that's kind of going over the top from my perspective, based on the feedback I heard. I can certainly see how we can accommodate, with solutions like marking and the like, a more practical space, but I don't see necessarily the need to go for a full-fledged solution D. So wanted to hear your feedback. And by the way, I really need to go in 3 minutes for my decision meeting on the PCN. So that's I want a quick reaction from the people.
Yes, we are not happy. We want lanes, but at the same time, I think, as you were actually highlighting, I think for us it will be a bit more adrenaline. So yes, we will be taking some risks, but also keep in mind, Mayor, that if someone will die because of a crash on this improvised lanes on the carriageway, then it will be on you. You will be the one responsible for us cyclists dying on the roads.
Okay.
So this is the grandmother.
Yes.
I'm concerned that this is going to be paid out of taxes, and if this is going to be a lot of money, having new infrastructure in place, because I would rather put my taxes going to other things in the city.
Okay. So, in conclusion on this, I think we can go for option E, not option D, because I can see that while option D would be favored by some, it's not necessarily as much wanted. So I would settle for option E. So thank you very much for a great consultation, all of you. We value your inputs as usual, and don't forget the election is next month.
Gerard, you have about 2 minutes?
I have 2 minutes, exactly 2 minutes, yes.
Okay, so what I'll do is, just in the interest of time, I'll just run through other set of slides, just as concluding slides, because this discussions can go a little further, but I think it'll be just good for you also to sort of quickly see the remaining slides, so that we just everybody's aware of the overall picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a few concluding slides. Sorry, 1 second. Can you see my screen?
Rajiv, you're sharing the screen. Okay. Rajiv, my screen share is already on. So if you want to just go
Yeah,
through
let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just as conclusion and learnings, we are looking at transit stations design. Transit station design cannot be looked in isolation, but there needs to be this idea of safe access, which has to be applied to this, and it becomes very critical. And station areas to be considered as an integral part of TOD, where you need to look at that larger buffer of 1 kilometer radius, rather than looking at immediate exit of the station when you're designing these TODs. And then we have creating safe access measures at a station area level. And finally, integrating road safety as a critical part of, critical aspect of the safe access process. Yeah. Next slide, Abhishek. So just to give you a larger spectrum, sort of understanding of how we have used this tool, because like I said earlier, it was a critical tool. And it was used, and it led to different kind of outputs, across different cities in India and around the world. For example, this one was engagement with people on ground, where we took 2 stations, metro stations in Kochi, and actually worked with the local representatives to sort of derive solutions on ground. Next one, Abhishek. At the same time, this led for us to informing policies, where we did a signage audit for the Kochi Metro in terms of what else has to be changed for better access of metro users in and around the metro station. Next one, Abhishek. And finally, also some entrepreneurial engagement, where we converted the solution to more tech-based solutions, and try to see how we could apply for this, where the participants were the entrepreneurs and they were coming up with these tech-based solutions. Next one. And citizen engagement, like similar to Kochi, this was done in a city called Bangalore, and it was based on the on-ground situation of 2 station areas. Yeah, next. And the concept of smart cities, which exists in India, and we help some of the smart cities for their kickoff workshops for their area-based development work. Next one. And this was also talking about training the trainers, where as a part of Amrut program and a couple of other government initiated programs, we use this tool to also train the urban planners and transport planners regarding the idea of safe access and TOD. Next one, Abhishek. And this also led us for an opportunity to do a masterclass in eco-mobility conference in Kaohsiung, Taiwan, in around 2017, I believe, where we had experts around the world. And this was one of the first case where we realized that although it started with us, looking at the Indian context and designing, we realized that a lot of other cities around the world face similar issues. It's then we realized that this tool is not just Indian based on Indian context, but actually it applies to much more global audience. Next one. And this was one of the recent ones in 2018, when we did this workshop for the urban planning experts in Addis. And we also realized that there's a lot of similar situation happening in Africa as compared to India and other parts of Asia. Yeah, next. Yeah, so this is my last slide, where this enabling safe access toolkit is available online on the WRI website. And if you want to sort of, and which explains the step-by-step process of how this activity is played. And if at all anybody is interested to take this further, or sort of do this in across other cities in the world, we'll be sort of more than happy to do this in much more detail, because it has not only, it does not only just talks about the principles, but also talks about its applications on a real case scenario. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajiv, for the presentation. Well, we had hoped to have a question and answer also, but there's no one left. If anyone who wants to ask a question can go ahead. Otherwise,
thank you guys. Good job. Just want to say congrats. Good job. Let's hope we'll share the invite a bit earlier, and maybe we'll get more attendance for the next session.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, I would like to thank everyone who joined, and for the next 3 Thursdays of this month, we'll be going through the next steps in the TOD framework. And thank Gerard, Prerna, Dhaval, and Rajiv for going over the presentations, and also like to thank you, Alina and Blanca from World Bank, and my other colleagues, Himanshi, Radha, Shabna, Leona, Rama, and Garima, for their support during the workshop as well as before that. And would want to thank everyone who took our time to participate. And I hope you all have a pleasant rest of the day, and stay healthy and wear a mask. The next session would be on Thursday, 8th October, 6:30 p.m. India time, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.